Good Tuesday afternoon to you. 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Hope you're having a great afternoon. Thanks for joining us. Andrew Berry and the Browns busy this afternoon. They have agreed to a 3-year contract extension with Jerry Jeudy, who they just acquired a couple weeks ago. It was made official last week from the Denver Broncos. So it's 3 years, up to $58 million, a $41 million guaranteed bonus at signing. So under $20 million a year, but not a bad deal for Jerry Jeudy. Andrew Berry trying to stay ahead of the curve like he was with the Amari Cooper trade. Let's welcome in Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Jeff, if you don't do Jeudy at this point, and he goes out and has 1,000 yards receiving and puts up 8-9 touchdowns, lives up to the potential of what the Browns think they can be, that contract's a lot richer than just under $20 million a year.
Yeah, and then there's also a possibility of him testing the market to either A, make that contract even more money, or B, just to go ahead and eventually leave. And it was a 1-year run with the Cleveland Browns where it worked out for Jerry Jeudy, maybe not necessarily the Browns. Look, for the Browns, if you have been trying to get Jerry Jeudy on your roster for 2 years now, I don't think anybody should be surprised that once they finally got the deal done, they worked quickly to try to get an extension done with Jerry Jeudy. Obviously, the Cleveland Browns think Jerry Jeudy was underutilized and was underperforming with the Denver Broncos. They feel that they can get more out of Jerry Jeudy in their offense. And me thinking, now that this team is going to return all the receivers who are going to return to this team in 2024, it's a total of over 4,000 yards receiving that all these guys had last year. These are numbers we're not comfortable with the Cleveland Browns. Again, you were trying to do everything you can to make sure that Deshaun Watson succeeds. This fan base is in turmoil. A lot of content creators and writers are, they just continuously want to take shots at it. And, look, it was a lot of heat the Browns were going to take to do this to begin with, but they want it to succeed. They desperately want for it to succeed. Jeudy is a guy they obviously highly value. The thought process of having 3 receivers on contract years was obviously difficult. With Coop, obviously there'll be the magical question of, can he still keep producing as he, closes in on age 30? Elijah Moore, 640 yards was good. Maybe not, what the Browns were totally hoping for, but they think they have something special in Jerry Jeudy here now in year 5. Now they have him locked up for the next couple of years. The Browns think they probably have their potential future number 1 wide receiver. Now that Jerry Jeudy is paid, Jerry Jeudy has got to go perform.
Yeah, and so the low end of it, $41 million, high end of it, $58 million. It's a 3-year deal. Doesn't include this year. He's on the low end of this year. It's a 3-year extension, so it's 25, 26, 27. Keep in mind, he's only 25. He's 24. He'll be 25 during the season. So young guy ascending. All in all, we'll see. Andrew Berry's been pretty good about being ahead of the curve with some of these. Let's see if he can continue that. Relative to Deshaun Watson, some good news. Could begin throwing as soon as today. We had heard on the show yesterday, his quarterback coach Quincy Avery said he's heading out to L.A. to begin working out with him. We now know that David Njoku will also be going out there to catch the balls from Deshaun Watson. Again, it's a good sign. You want Deshaun Watson to ease back into it, and you want Deshaun Watson and David Njoku to develop a chemistry because tight end is a position that has been really effective when Deshaun Watson has been good.
Well, the thing with Njoku and what you saw, and this maybe doesn't, obviously trace from the results from Deshaun Watson last year, but maybe more from the Joe Flacco run, is once this team was able to basically threaten teams by actually throwing the ball vertically down the field and having some success with it, it's what we've always known with David Njoku. There's just no way to cover him. Linebackers aren't fast enough. Defensive backs aren't big enough. There is nobody who can really cover a guy like David Njoku. So once, the Browns were able to threaten all areas of the field, it took a weapon like David Njoku and obviously just increased what he could do. When we heard that they knew when they thought Deshaun Watson was going to start throwing again, that was on his, obviously his podcast with Quincy Avery. You kind of had the idea that it was coming soon. It wasn't like, they were going to tease that and be like, oh, well, April 16th, you knew it was probably something that was going to be coming pretty soon. So David's going to go out there and obviously he's going to start slow. You're not bringing the wide outs out and you're not throwing 65-yard 9 routes. You're going to start to slowly get back into rhythm. For Deshaun to amp it up to, what hopefully and, probably is going to be the most important year of his career because, if it doesn't go all the way right in 2025, the Browns, I'm not saying they would move on, but they're probably going to have to start making some serious decisions about, maybe, if they have to hedge their bet because maybe it doesn't look as good as they, hoped it would. Me personally, I think Deshaun Watson played a lot better in 2023 than people want to give him credit for. I'm looking forward to it. I really am. I think, this team, has done a really, really good job. The last 2 weeks, obviously starting with the Jeudy trade, then the key moves they made in free agency. The defensive line was good last year. They actually improved the defensive line this year. And look, it's all going to come down to 4. It's always going to come down to 4. He makes a ton of money. The quarterback is the most important position in the game, and the Browns think they have their guy. It's taken 2 years to hopefully get to that. And I know I said it year 1, and I know I said it year 2, and here I am saying it going into year 3. But it comes down, obviously, to Deshaun and what exactly he can do over 17-game regular season. But the Browns have done everything they can to obviously put a formidable group on the field.
Along those lines, ranking AFC teams after the first wave of free agency. This is from CBSSports.com. This is in the AFC. Number 1, the Chiefs. Number 2, the Ravens. Texans are 3. Bengals 4. Browns 5, just ahead of the Bills. Keep in mind, Browns are getting back a large chunk of their injured players from 2023. Even with all the backups, Browns still won double-digit games, made the postseason. Imagine what this team is capable of if they remain healthy. And that is a key thing that I think a lot of people are overlooking. The Browns were beat up pretty much all over the place a season ago and made the playoffs.
I think for one of the biggest things for me also that goes into this is I want to see this defense in year 2 under Jim Schwartz. I didn't think they were going to be that good last year. You always think there's going to be growing pains with the defense, new coordinator, a lot of new talent, and it didn't go that way last year. Obviously, there were times, in the middle of the season, where the injuries caught up to him a little bit on the defensive side of the ball. Myles Garrett was out there in spirit, but nowhere near who he actually is. That got better as the year went on. But I really want to see what this defense can do in year 2. I mean, you can almost return your entire secondary. You can return almost your entire defensive line. I like the moves they made at the linebacker position. And then now on the offensive side of the ball, you talk about the fact you will be playing with Jedrick Wills. You will be playing with Jack Conklin. You will be playing with DeJuan Jones, obviously. What Nick can bring this team, we will see. I still have my hopes up high that at least when Nick does, join the team on the field, he will still be competing at a high level. But you really, really have to think that, this is now a sustainable thing. There is not going to be that drop back in 21 like there was the first year, obviously, when they went to Pittsburgh, won the playoff game. And I think a lot of it comes down to, obviously, is the culture. And all of these guys were just so excited to get back into the building. The Shelby Harrises of the world, the Maurice Hursts of the world. These guys were so excited to just get back and know that they were officially back. It tells you a lot because, we've dealt with a lot of dissension in the ranks with this franchise over the years in, obviously last couple of years before Deshaun with, Baker Mayfield. And if it was good and the team was playing well, everything was great. If it wasn't, everybody was pointing fingers at everybody. It just doesn't feel like that's the case right now. It really feels like this organization from top to bottom is pretty much everybody is on the same page.
All right, this from PFF. Predicting fifth-year option decisions for all of the 2021 first-round picks. Greg Newsome, fifth-year option amount, $13.377 million. Prediction exercised. Earned coverage grades of above 70 each of his first 3 seasons as a sticky player in coverage who a lot of teams would covet if he ever did truly become available via trade. Whichever roster he is on come May 2nd, his option should be exercised. And I would imagine it will be exercised by the Browns, and they'll figure it out from there. They've got to decide coming up because you're going to have to pay Martin Emerson. Emerson is a third-round pick, does not have a fifth-year option. You're going to have to – that comes a year before. You don't get that fifth year to kind of push it back to.
Well, they both would hit free agency at the same time. That's the concern you have. And look, if the Cleveland Browns picked up Jedrick Wills' fifth-year option – you obviously think it's a slam dunk that they're going to pick up Greg Newsome. Greg Newsome's been the better player on the field. Obviously, in the early part of his career, he was an outside corner as a rookie and showed extremely, extremely well, and we thought was going to be the long-time running mate for Denzel Ward. When the Browns drafted Martin Emerson, I think they hoped he was going to be a good player. I think he's probably already shattered whatever they thought he was going to be. The only reason I would even suggest that there would be a possibility the Browns and Greg Newsome would maybe find a way to part ways is it would maybe be in the best interest of Greg Newsome. Greg obviously plays a lot of nickel reps. Nickels, the market is starting to get better. They get paid better. Every cornerback wants to be paid as an outside cornerback. for Greg Newsome, that's obviously, hopefully the path he wants to take. But the way he's played, and if there really hasn't been any real talk of the Browns moving on from him at this point anyway, where they would leave the decision for somebody else to make about his fifth-year option. But if he's still around, I think there is not a question in the world that Greg Newsome's fifth-year option is going to get picked up. He really, really made the jump in year 3, and I think truly embraced his role. And, his interception return for a touchdown in Baltimore was probably one of the bigger defining moments of the 2023 season.
All right, before we go to break, Browns and James Proche have reportedly agreed to a 1-year deal to bring him back, primary punt returner back half of last season. He did a nice job of returning punts. I know he had the one muff, but by and large, he gave you a pretty good, credible return man for the first time in a while for the Browns.
He actually was a nice little surprise down the end. The Browns hadn't gotten much ever really in a while from the punt return game. So with, him coming back, but look, I don't know necessarily that there's a guarantee here. That Proche is going to make this team. You're already going to keep Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, David Bell, you figure's got a real solid shot here. This is a very, very deep wide receiver class. Michael Woods will be coming back this year at 24 years old after his injury last year. I'm not saying there's a guarantee Proche stays, but again, this could be a piece, and the Browns love to do this. Hey, you're not our 53rd guy. You're our 54th, 56th, 57th, but that doesn't mean you can't be on somebody else's 53-man roster a la Josh Dobbs last year. But you bring him in. Obviously, he's familiar somewhat with the system. Obviously, Bubba Ventrone liked him. So you have this option here. And look, if it works out and he is your return guy, you know what you have and you're comfortable with it. If you think you brought in somebody, through the draft who can do the job and do it better, albeit, but, nice little, reunion here for somebody that, kind of just fell into their lap and they kind of needed. But, when he got the opportunity, he obviously did a pretty solid job with it.
Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast, and I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll take a listen to who cornerback Patrick Peterson most excited to see in 2024. Sports for CLE. Be right back. Stay with us.
All right, everybody. Let's take 5. With one of these 5 Lady Luck scratch-offs from the Ohio Lottery.
Like the $1 Lady Luck 5X. Because the pink really pops, like my safety vest. Plus, $1,000 grand prize really hammers it home for me.
And this $2 10X really nails it for me. $2 for a shot at 10 grand? That's rock solid.
The Lady Luck family of scratch-offs is the Ohio Lottery's first ever, with 5 price points from $1 to $20. They're built for fun.
We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Patrick Peterson is now a free agent cornerback looking for a new team to play for. He was on NFL Network's Good Morning Football talking about the team he was most excited to see take the field in 2024.
I'm going to go to Cleveland Browns just because I like what Steve and the coaching staff have been able to do over there in Cleveland. Having a number 1 defense last year kind of fell off the rails a little bit with some injuries and guys not really, able to finish the season for them. But you get Deshaun Watson back.
Yep.
You have weapons outside now that's able to help Amari Cooper. You have tight ends that can get open. So I'm really, really giddy to see how this team is going to finish the season this season versus how they finished last year.
Okay, Watson. What's your read on Watson? Forget, whatever. Now that he's a player on the field, when you're defending a Deshaun Watson, what's your read on him? And is that someone that you're still scared about in the league? Because we haven't seen that football from him. We saw a glimpse in that Ravens game that he got hurt.
That's the big question, that we haven't seen enough football from him as of late. But Deshaun is a guy who's very elusive in the pocket, who can extend plays, who's also crafty enough to win those ball games late in those games when need be. So he has talent around him. Now it's all going to be upon him to stay healthy on the field and be there when the team needs him.
Yeah, that's defense back Patrick Peterson talking about the Browns in 2024. Kind of interesting when you listen to a guy who is on the field playing against Deshaun Watson. He played for the Steelers last year.
Well, Patrick Peterson was a generational player in his early time of his career in the Arizona Cardinals. And obviously got the opportunity to see him at least once last year. And then also was on a losing side to Dorian Thompson-Robinson. And, not a knock on Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who had a pretty good day, had a huge drive to close that game out. But Deshaun Watson plays that game. The Browns probably winning that game by double digits. And I think that's where a guy like Patrick Peterson probably looks at this team and understands just how good they are. Then you look at it and you look at the way they closed out the regular season, and they were on their fourth quarterback. They were on their fourth and fifth offensive tackles. They didn't have Nick Chubb. At times, there were plenty of people missing from the defensive side of the ball. And, once you realize, just how well the team was playing, basically in spite of everything that did not have, yeah, you imagine what the whole picture would look like, and how fierce of a competitor or an opponent this team would be, at full strength. So obviously you can't fool guys. Guys in the NFL obviously know ball. They know who's good, who's not. And you just go through the list of the Browns roster, and even right now, it's like, well, all right, well, they have 5 draft picks. Well, even right now at this stage here in March, I'm not even sure they have 5 open roster spots really where draft picks would fit in. It'll work itself out. It always does. But his roster is pretty formidable right now.
All right, this from Sports Illustrated. 4 players who still could have their contract restructured for the Browns. Number 1, Nick Chubb, and I would imagine that will likely happen. Number 2, Amari Cooper. That will be interesting to see if they can extend him. They got Jerry Jeudy under contract. $20 million is his roster. $20 million plus is his roster figure for the upcoming year. Also older, older saying 30. Number 3, Jack Conklin. That one's a big cap number, so it'll be easy to see, or interesting rather to see. And number 4, they say Deshaun Watson. So Jeff, the question I have, if the Browns don't restructure Deshaun Watson's contract, does it really mean anything at this point in time, do you think?
Well, the verbiage here is a little. The restructure could just be we're turning it into basically a roster bonus, and therefore we now have $30 million extra in cap space. The thing where you do wonder is what would they be opening it for? They don't necessarily have to do it. They could do it. I'm not sure that there's room on this roster to go out and add yet another big name player, but you always want to have the availability to do it. They can certainly do it at any given time, so you could open up that large amount of number. I don't think this is a question about extending anybody. It's just about whether or not they want to open up cap room, which then leads to rollover cap, which gives them a large room of cap to work with next year because they did not meet this year's cap. It's always about, and this is one of the things, and look, every team tries to do this, but I think the Browns make a more emphasis out of anybody else's. As much as the Browns are looking at 20 and 24, they are looking at 2025 as well. Look, I want my draft picks. Obviously, that was a little different for a couple of years, but I want draft picks because draft picks are assets. I want cap space because it gives me flexibility. And the Browns do have a bunch of young players, and obviously there's going to be another contract extension coming here shortly, most likely from the linebacker room. So there's things that have to get worked on, obviously, for the Cleveland Browns. But they make a great point of, making sure that they're taken care of today with their eyes on tomorrow as well.
All right. I know you've addressed this on the Locked On Browns podcast. Why do you think and fans were going crazy, some fans were going crazy with the signing of Tyler Huntley, another quarterback. So you have DTR, you have Jameis Winston, you have Deshaun Watson. They signed another guy, Tyler Huntley, who when he played pretty well for the Ravens. Why do you think it doesn't mean much?
I just don't know how it works. Look, everybody was, up in arms about, the Browns making the decision for Jameis Winston over Joe Flacco. The Browns may have signed the best available backup quarterback in the NFL. Yes, Jameis Winston is very similar to Joe Flacco as far as the two of them can throw for 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions at any given day. A lot of that came down to how your defense played as to whether or not you won those ball games. So the Browns got the backup quarterback they wanted. I don't think they are done with DTR. They know DTR won a big game for them last year against Pittsburgh Steelers. I still think if DTR did not take that hit in the Denver Bronco game, the Browns would have rallied and won that game in Denver. You have a guy here in Huntley. Look, he was part of the Ravens for all these years. You're going to milk him for a lot of information, things that maybe you think you don't know about the Ravens and the way the offensive switch was in 2023, as they obviously did some new things on the offensive side of the ball. The Browns have always carried 4 quarterbacks. This is ridiculous. And for everybody, look, St. Patrick's Day, beautiful. This was everybody got up in arms about. The problem is you have a large faction of folks that just will never be happy with the Browns for making the move for Deshaun Watson. They're not going to change. And I am not going against them for what they believe in or why their thought process is what it is. But it is not going to change. And, even if you think Deshaun hasn't played that well, again, I think I'm in part of the minority where I think he played a lot better in 23 than folks actually want to give him credit for. Tyler Huntley ain't it. You're not telling me, they signed Tyler Huntley. All of a sudden, come on now, stop. Tyler Huntley is a candidate probably, in my opinion, at best for the practice squad, or he will be the Josh Dobbs of summer 2024. And the Browns will pray for somebody to give them a call late in August and say, and we know Andrew Berry, I've got day 3 picks. Okay, I will take a day 3 pick. You can gladly have him. Tyler Huntley is here. He will be a part of the spring. He will be a part of the summer. But, to get all up in arms over this just makes no sense. Look, if you saw a name that we all said, whoa, now you brought that quarterback in, we'll know the guy that they think could be a threat as competition to Deshaun Watson. To this point, they have not done that.
Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. And now I'm going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break. Back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. We'll also talk a little draft. Sports for CLE. Be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, this is Rico. I just want to give a little praise to the Browns organization as a whole. It is refreshing to finally hear players or coaches talk about the atmosphere, the camaraderie, the brotherhood, and the family environment that this organization has achieved. Let's face it, the Browns were the hapless, perpetual losers. It does take years for that negative stigma to finally dissipate. I mean, we're even able to land top-tier coaching talent like Vrabel, or even getting up-and-coming coaches from the blue-chip college programs. Now, to be fair, the work is far from complete, but it is great to see and hear our Browns franchise becoming a first-class organization. We just have to get that elusive Lombardi trophy. Thanks.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Jeff, need back-to-back playoff appearances. Let's not get ahead of it. It's been a while since you've been in the playoff consecutive years, so you have the ability to do that, and then you go from there. You win the division. That's another one.
Well, and I think part of what the overall is kind of what I was talking about a little bit earlier is, there's no dissension within the ranks in this team. It seems like you have a bunch of people that truly appreciate each other, respect each other, all dedicated, to what they do. There's a lot of guys, you put on Cavs games, you see a lot of Browns in the crowd. These guys aren't running away, what I'm saying? They're staying in the Cleveland area. You go back a decade ago, you thumb through social media, there wasn't anybody on this team that was usually in the offseason was within, 200 miles of the city of Cleveland, Ohio. I think you have guys that have gotten together, and it is now because Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski have been here for 4 years. There is, basically a way that you are treated as a player with this organization, the way you are looked after, the fact that they treat people like men, not commodities. That goes a long, long way in the NFL. And, players are a lot closer in league circles than they ever were in the past. I'm sure everybody's chattering with everybody. People talk about, the way they are treated by the Browns organization on, off the field. And, that hopefully cultivates into winning. It's done so in some small steps in 20, obviously 2023, obviously hope for a major, major step here in 2024. But, people, it's kind of like, people think it's like a lame term, but like a lot of it starts from a foundation. It starts from a core. It's got to be bred up. And I think it's choosing the right people, investing in long-term contracts on the right people, the Nick Chubbs of the world, the Myles Garretts of the world. And then all of a sudden, everybody all of a sudden might be 53 individuals, but 53 becomes one.
All right. So the Browns have pick 54. That's currently second round, pick 54. What do you think they do with that? What we're What are some areas? Give me some positions and some names that you think could be in play there.
Well, the first thing you look at right now is, obviously, I think the Browns are in true position where they can go best player available. The only one we don't really know anything about is the running back position. That all comes down to Nick Chubb. And to be honest, I don't think even the Browns or even Nick Chubb have a true timetable on when Nick Chubb is going to be able to perform this team. Do I believe he's going to be able to play 17 regular season games? No. So if that means he's got to sit out to mid-October, because then he's going to play, the rest of the regular season and would be ready for 3-4 possible playoff games, I think that is the more smart and obviously plan that the Browns should be approaching. So you could say running back could be in play at 54. You could almost probably have any running back in this draft class at 54 if you want him. Trey Benson from Florida State. If he went out there, ran a 4.39 at the combine. And I'm a Florida State fan. I didn't think Trey Benson had that type of breakaway speed. So it kind of even took my breath away. Solid production in his time at FSU. And then you put it together with obviously some great workouts. If you do want to go wide receiver at 54, there are guys. Could Keon Coleman slip that far in the draft? Tez Walker out of North Carolina put up a relative athletic score of 9.9 plus. He is a guy that could be a big-time receiver, and the Browns do have to have eyes on today and tomorrow, like I was saying earlier, as far as the wide receiver position. If you want to go defensive line, Mike Hall out of Ohio State. Mike obviously going to weigh in probably anywhere between 285 and 290 on game days. He has a great first step on the interior. For the Browns, he could probably take some reps on the edge. It doesn't matter that he wouldn't start. It doesn't matter that he wouldn't be on the field on first down. Those aren't players that the Browns are looking for anyway. The Browns ideally want to get to their nickel and dime package as quickly as possible. That is someplace where a guy like Mike Hall could certainly be a part of it. Linebacker could certainly be something they look at 54 as well. You figure the Devin Bush signing, he comes in as the Mike. But now, as I'm saying, some people, the Mike. Well, for the Browns, and in no disrespect, I love Devin Bush. But he's going to be the first player off the field when this team goes to nickel and dime. If they go to nickel, JOK is staying on the field. Jordan Hicks is staying on the field. They go to dime, Jordan Hicks is most likely leading the field. JOK is going to stay. Maybe you bring in another safety because you use Grant Delpit, and he can play some nickel or dime backer as well. So there's a lot of ways you could go. Jeremiah Trotter, if you want to bring him in now and maybe find another the eventual running mate for a JOK down the stretch, because that is something you're going to have to consider. Is once JOK is playing on that contract extension, the Browns might not be going the veteran linebacker route anymore. They never really have committed money to the linebacker position. Once JOK's contract extension will probably go into effect, my guess is they're going to want, obviously, young kids under rookie contracts, UDFAs playing around him. But of those three, any position you think could probably fit in at 54 right now. But I would say D tackle, running back, wide receiver, linebacker are probably the top four for me as far as what you would look at.
All right, this one from Pro Football Focus. Perfect player that fits in the NFL draft for teams that do not spend big money in free agency. Again, this from PFF. For the Browns, they say linebacker Peyton Wilson from North Carolina State. Browns brought in Jordan Hicks, Devin Bush to replace Anthony Walker, Sione Takitaki. I still believe a young athletic linebacker could be a great investment. And you see the amount of money that they've spent in guarantees and free agency. Kind of goes along with what you said, because they are going to, in all likelihood, extend Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah and pay him pretty well. And this would be another guy that is a lot like him. He runs pretty well. He's coming off an injury, but if he wasn't coming off an injury, he probably wouldn't be around where the Browns are going to draft in the second round.
Well, the injury would be the A. The B would be that Peyton Wilson's going to be 24 years old when the NFL draft commences, and it's just not an age that the Cleveland Browns draft. Do you tell me, do I like Peyton Wilson's game? Sure. Do I think he's a good player? Yeah. But that 24 is a big, big red flag for the Cleveland Browns. So the fact that was even phrased where it said young, Peyton Wilson ain't young in NFL terms. He's just not. There's guys in this draft class who will play a lot. I mean, you look at Audric Estime from Notre Dame. He's going to play well into the fall, at 20 years old. Braden Allen from Wisconsin will play until January at 20 years old. That's an age red flag for the Browns. And until they break it, and we've been saying this for years now, with this regime, this will now be their fifth draft. Until they show us that age doesn't matter to them, we have to believe that there's a pretty big age factor on their board. And I'm assuming Peyton Wilson would fall under that although he's a very good player, and I hope he goes anywhere else but the AFC North.
Yeah, and to your point, the reason that they value younger players, so if he's 24, by the time his second contract comes up, he'll be 29. You're pushing 30, which, as we know, that's kind of where you become concerned.
Yeah, I mean, the conversations we're having about Amari Cooper, but look at all Amari Cooper's done since he became in the league at 21 years old. It's a whole different landscape. And it's not even so much about the second contract. It's just that you are what you are. I can't expect you to get any better. You're 24 years old. That's why I'm going to take the 20-year-old who's got crappy eating habits, didn't really know how to work out. Maybe his college was playing him in a position that was not best suited to his abilities. When a guy's 24, it is what it is. You know, hey, it may hit, it might work out, could give you a couple solid seasons in the league. But, you know, a lot of times, and especially for the Browns, there's two things. We're looking for players to develop because we already have our starting players. So we want guys who can maybe be future starters for us. I don't need a guy this year to start. And again, the other thing is it's tricky with the mic because for the Browns, their bread and butter is getting you off the field. So ideally for them, the Mike, the middle linebacker, in a perfect game plan for the Browns defense, the Mike is maybe going to play 20, 25 reps because maybe you factor in some goal line, short yardage, things like that. It's just not a position, you know, and look, the Browns don't value the linebacker position. But of the linebacker position, probably the least valued one is going to be Mike because you're the first one going out as they bring in Newsome or they bring in a third safety. Or, you know, they bring in there's just so many scenarios where the Mike's going to come off the field for the Browns. It's kind of hard to determine, you know, and justify maybe putting pick 54 into a middle linebacker.
Jeff Lloyd, Locked On Browns podcast, as always. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jeff.
All the best, Dave. Got a few weeks away. Getting close.
Well, it's getting there. Jeff Lloyd, Locked On Browns podcast. Make sure to check him out. Always really good and insightful Browns coverage. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns. Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily and the Barking Browns podcast straight ahead. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Go ahead and pop a clamp on that.
Let's take 5.
With one of these 5 Lady Luck scratch-offs from the Ohio Lottery, like this new $20 100X with its $1 million grand prize. I want to get my cut of that 76% payout.
So, good news. We're playing the largest family of scratch-offs ever. These Lady Lucks have all the fun and no complications.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. This from Jake Trotter of ESPN. According to multiple sources, the Browns entered free agency with the high hopes of netting a premier playmaking defensive tackle. But after top targets Christian Wilkins signed with the Raiders, Kansas City's Chris Jones, Seattle's Leonard Williams, and Baltimore's Justin Madubuike re-signed with their own teams, Browns switched their focus to Plan B, bringing back several key players from its #1 ranked defense for a second year, and then kind of supplementing as well. Let's welcome in Casey Kinnamon, Dog Pound Daily, and the Barking Browns podcast. Casey, it made sense, and quite honestly, with what those defensive tackles signed for, I'd have been shocked if they went that far above where they were going to go.
Yeah, that's a heck of a plan B, signing Zadarius Harris and Hurst. But, like, if you were to tell me, like, when I look at that list of tackles, I honestly only think Chris Jones is the true, like, difference maker, someone that affects everyone around him, like a math changer. Those other players are good, but for what they signed, I would much rather have Zadarius, Shelby Harris, and Mo Hurst. I think that, and we've seen that work. This isn't a gamble. We don't have to wait to see what the chemistry is going to be, what this looks like. We know what this group looks like when you pair it with Miles. So I think it was the safe route, and I have no problem with Andrew Berry taking that route whatsoever.
They add Quentin Jefferson. He kind of replaces Jordan Elliott. Jefferson is a lot like Shelby Harris and Maurice Hurst. Has been around and has had some success in his stops.
Yeah, Jefferson gives you more of a pass rush than Elliott ever did. But he's probably a little less against the run, but not so much that it creates any deficiencies. He's someone I'm very excited. He's everywhere he's been, which has been everywhere. This is his 6th different team in 6 years. He's a mercenary, but I'll tell you what, I think he'll fit right at home with what these guys do. And he gives you an interchangeable piece because he's yet another guy who can give you inside-outside versatility to go along with Zadarius and Alex Wright. So there's all kinds of possibilities here.
Yeah, and when we... I know we mention this occasionally, but when you talk about that versatility, what it allows Jim Schwartz to do, look at the guy that is lining up across from you and say, this guy's going to have a lot of trouble with Zadarius or Quentin.
Yeah, it gives room for like in-game adjustments. When you see the speeds working on the end, put Obo out there and shift Zadarius in, and then switch that up and bring him back outside, and then you can go big Dalvin as a 4-eye. You can mix and match so many of these pieces that it's going to give offensive line coaches absolute nightmares.
All right, this from Spotrac. It's interesting. So it's 2024 cash allocations to the projected running back 1, wide receiver 1 and 2, and tight end sets. Highest 49ers at $62 million. Right behind them at the Browns at 59.6. Then you've got the Bears, Eagles, Titans. And that takes into account Nick Chubb's contract, Amari Cooper's contract, David Njoku's contract. So Browns putting a lot of money into that and really need to see some results on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, it's crazy because if you look at that list, you see someone like the 49ers, and it makes sense, right? Rookie quarterback, you can afford that kind of stuff at the skill positions. But you look at the Browns doing that with their skill positions, plus the highest paid offensive line, plus what they're giving Watson. I think it just goes to show you what Jimmy's willing to do to get this done. Like, he's not afraid to reach in his pockets and dole out that cash, because from a cash perspective, the Browns are paying just so much on the offensive side of the ball. And it's not as if they're ignoring the defense. The defense has several high-priced contracts with other players coming up for extensions like JOK. It's just there's enough talent all over this field that there's no excuse not to get it done. But when you just pivot and look just at the offense with what they're paying out, they should have a high expectation.
Yeah, two things. Jimmy Haslam's willing to pay, and Andrew Berry and all of the salary cap guys, they understand the formula and are forward thinking enough that they're not signing themselves into a corner from year to year.
Yeah, they've sharpened up their juggling skills. The sleight of hand, look over here, and they move it over here, and they already know what they're going to do well in advance. That's the reason they can make extensions like they did with Jeudy today. This is all part of the plan, and it seems like a lot at the time, but when you take a step and look back, they've got this thing mapped out for years to come.
All right, this one from NFL Rumors. Michael Thomas's best fits: Dolphins, Bengals, Browns, and Lions. Thomas was released after the beginning of the league year. It was already agreed upon that he would, so he's a free agent. Spotrac, this is what they say his contract will be. His projected contract, 1 year, $9.2 million. Comparable players' contracts listed there are Cooks, Lockett, Robinson, Adam Thielen. I'm intrigued by Thomas. I just don't see the fit there.
Yeah, it's tough, right? I mean, you're looking at a guy who started off his career just breaking records. most catches through one season, 2 seasons, 3, all the way till 2019, where he was leading the league in yards per game and receptions, and then it's all fell off a cliff. And the question is, can he get back to that? Well, we're kind of already doing that with one other position, where we're kind of looking to the past, saying if player X can get back to 2020, it's kind of hard to do that with multiple positions, especially with what you already have allocated in the wide receiver room and the extension that Jeudy just signed today. So I feel that if you get another receiver, it's either going to come through the draft or it's going to be a bargain basement free agent signing. And I don't think $9 million is worth it with as many question marks as Thomas has.
All right, so you've alluded to this. Browns and Jeudy agreed to a 3-year contract extension, up to $58 million, 41 of it's guaranteed at signing. Andrew Berry, on the Jerry Jeudy extension, we felt that the ability to add a passionate and competitive player with his combination of strengths would be an important component of our offense now into the future. At 24 years old, he's just entering his prime. We're pleased to have Jeudy as a member of the Browns for the next several years. Believe that his best is yet to come. And again, Andrew Berry's been pretty good about being ahead of the curve. You know, the Cooper contract was interesting. And Njoku finally paying off on the extension. If you wait and Jerry Jeudy goes out and has 1,000 yards, you're not getting him for that deal. And he's probably going to hit free agency. So you have to move up to what would be, you're probably overpaying him a little bit for what his production has been, but you're also telling him, we think you're going to produce.
We said the same thing with David Njoku's contract. We're in the same exact spot where what he has done up to this point didn't merit what they gave him, but then looking back on what he's given you since you paid him that contract, it's a bargain. I think that that's the route they're going this with Jeudy. And I said it on the show last week, I didn't think he'd play on that 5th-year option. I figured they've been after this guy for 3 years. There was a reason. They already had ideas in mind, and I'm sure that they were starting to work out the kinks then. It did not surprise me that they extended him. I figured it would come a little later in the process, but to go ahead and get it out of the way, leave all the mystery, because they didn't have people under contract past this year other than David Bell and Tillman. So now to get another young guy under contract, he's only 24. To get a 24-year-old guy who they believe is ascending, you know, so it'll all be what he fits into in this offense and what his production looks like. But will it surprise me in 2 years if we're looking back saying this was a steal? Not at all. And it's also contractual. That's up to $58 million.
Right.
I'll be interested to see what the language actually look like when the details get released.
Yeah, you know, if they're paying him $58 million, he's probably had a couple of 1,000-yard seasons, and you know, they will be very happy with Jerry Jeudy if he earns that $58 million over the course of the 3-year extension. So it's this year, 25, 26, and 27 are the years. He's actually going to be under contract now for 4 more years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they'll be happy, as will the fans.
Casey Kinnamon and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll hear from Najee Hines, free agent that signed with the Browns at running back. Why did he sign with the Browns? He'll tell us. Sports4CLE, he'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns with Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily, as well as the Barking Browns podcast. Browns signed free agent running back Najee Hines, coming off an ACL, LCL injury that was suffered in a jet ski accident, of all things. So he didn't play last year. Hines talked about the process and what drew him to the Browns.
I got released by Buffalo 2 weeks ago. As soon as I got released, Cleveland and some other teams reached out. Cleveland texted my agent, said we would want to have him first. Got me here last Monday. Got here, obviously, I know Bubba. I know Ken Dorsey.
Yep.
And then I actually saw Deuce Staley. When I saw those guys, I was like, oh, because Deuce actually ran my pro day when he was in Philly, and I always liked him. My dad even said, hey, I hope he coaches you one day. So I saw Deuce, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I like it here. Then I actually have been watching film with you guys when you had Joe and Deshaun and PJ and all the quarterbacks. So I've been watching film, and both sides kind of agreed that I think it would be a perfect fit, and they thought that, and we thought that. So it was really easy. I had some more visits set up, but after here, I was just like, oh, I like it. You got to go where you feel welcome and where you feel like it's home.
Again, that's courtesy of Cleveland Browns Daily. So, Casey, you're hearing that more and more. People walk in the building and want to be here. It's kind of nice.
Yeah, it's refreshing, isn't it? But you heard the familiarity, all the coaches and even, the coordinator. There's going to be a fit there, but there's a fit with just play style as well. He's a perfect fit for like a third down back. Excellent with his hands out of the backfield. Can run inside zone, but what he gives you as a returner, I love the signing. I just love the idea of you having a true third down back who gives you versatility in the return game. I think Hines is a perfect fit for both.
All right, I know you also wrote an article, 3 free agent running backs the Browns should consider. Nobody knows when Nick Chubb is going to be available. Number 3, Cam Akers, had some success. Again, a young guy, 24 years old, former high draft pick that hasn't quite gotten it done. Rashad Penny, that's another interesting name. It was successful with Seattle, then signed with the Eagles and really never got the chance. And Donta Foreman, another guy, a big, powerful running back, has had some success. A little older than Akers, 27. When given the opportunity, he has performed. Take us through those 3 who you think might be the best fit. Again, nobody knows when Nick Chubb is going to be ready to go, and you don't want him to have to shoulder more of a load than his leg is ready for, than his knee is ready for.
Yeah, that's the preface. This is living in a world where Nick Chubb maybe is on the pup, and you need 4 games. And do you feel good with just Pierre Strong and Jerome Ford and Hines for a stretch like that? I would get insurance. That's just where I'm at, especially when they're as cheap as these options. Now you could say you want to draft one, but then you're asking a rookie to be ready out the box to give you that, and that's dicey as well. So just look at these low rent guys. You got Cam Akers, 24 years old. He's really adept out of running out of the shotgun, which is something that matters with this new style of offense they're going to be implementing. He's been exposed to McVay's system, O'Connell in Minnesota at 24, 1.2 million, something like that. That's pretty low risk and someone I think that can give you a little bit of a boost. Penny's the interesting one because we're talking about a guy who was taken ahead of Chubb in the 2018 draft. And even though he underperformed in Seattle, there was 2 years where he had over 6 yards per carry. And in 2021, he led the league in yards per carry. And the run game coordinator was Andy Dickerson, who's now the Browns offensive line coach. I just think if you're looking at someone who can give you a burst for a short stint, I think Penny's very intriguing, especially for as cheap as he'll be coming off that wasted year in Philadelphia. But then there's Donta Foreman, which is my choice. He's a bruiser, though. 6 foot, 235 pounds, really gets downhill, gets after it. And I just look at what he'd be able to do behind the interior of this Browns offensive line, and he'd really give you a hammer. He's also really nice in the screen game. So if you're looking for these real cheap options who could supplement that running back room, and even if they had to share with Ford for 4 games, I think that'd give you a bigger boost. And any of those 3, if you signed them, I wouldn't be mad if that kicked Pierre Strong out of the rotation.
Yeah, and again, all guys they have been productive in the NFL at some level when given the opportunity. I completely forgot Andy Dickerson and Rashad Penny, so that'll be worth keeping an eye on as well. Mary Kay Cabot tweets this out, and it's kind of interesting. Browns close to re-signing safety Rodney McLeod to a 1-year deal. Again, guy that played for Jim Schwartz just like Jordan Hicks. If they can get that done, bring him back. He was every bit as good as we thought he would be when he was able to play.
Yeah, pretty vital for Schwartz to have that guy on the back end, that kind of veteran savvy. And he's someone that we saw when he was on the field last year. We actually gave them the option to move Delpit around more, which I think is his most effective trait, is his ability to be that move guy and either be in the slot, come down in the box, kick back. He can do a little bit of everything. McLeod gives you that flexibility. Now between Bell and Hickman, they prove to be playable depth. And I believe eventually there will be a youth movement, but I wouldn't force that if you don't have to. If you can get McLeod under contract for at least another year, I'd say that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, and to your point, ideally you'd like Hickman to kind of pick your spots where you have to play him. He played really well. Both the guys that you're talking about, rookie undrafted free agents who played pretty well when given the opportunity.
Yeah, and I think eventually those will be your depth pieces on a full-time basis. But if you don't have to make it happen, you don't have to force it and kind of let them keep growing naturally into those roles. I think that'd be beneficial, and it gives Schwartz another coach on the field. And McLeod still proved he had plenty in the tank. So if he's fully healthy and he's willing to sign for another year, I'd say you make that happen.
We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily will take a look at his first free agent, first mock draft after the beginning of free agency. He's got a linebacker going at 54. We'll tell you who it is. Stay with us. Sports4CLE. Be right back.
Here comes the rush.
All right, everybody, let's take 5. With one of these 5 Lady Luck scratch-offs from the Ohio Lottery.
Like the $10 Lady Luck 50X. It's got prizes all the way up to $500 grand, so you could really clean up.
The Lady Luck family of scratch-offs is the Ohio Lottery's first ever, with 5 price points from $1 to 20. They're an easy way to cook up some fun.
We continue talking Browns with Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily, as well as the Barking Browns podcast. So Casey has done a mock draft. So it's the Browns post first wave of free agency mock draft. Pick 54, linebacker Ajarian Cooper from Texas A&M. We're going to take a look at pick 85 as well. At 85, he has Jatavian Sanders, tight end from Texas. So, Casey, what do you like about Cooper and Sanders? So you got linebacker, tight end going in the 3rd and 4th rounds there.
Well, first, I'd like to say what you've done in free agency kind of allows for this to happen in the draft because you're not drafting out of need for this season. You can kind of draft with an eye towards the future. And the way I look at it, Edgerrin Cooper, in my mind, is the only first-round graded linebacker. But he's not going to go in the first round because of the value of the position. So if he slides to 54, I sprint that card up. His tape is probably the funnest tape I've seen all year. This kid's a natural playmaker. He's 22 years old, 6'2", 220, a 4.5 40. He has the explosivity, but he just finds the ball. He had 17 tackles for loss last year, 8 sacks. He just finds the ball. He's a weaponizable player, too, because I don't believe that he's locked into anything as a linebacker. He's agnostic. You could move him, Mike, Sam, or Will, whatever needs to happen. And given what you've done in free agency, he doesn't have to see the field right away. He can grow into it. But I think if you fast forward a year and you're looking at Edgerrin Cooper and JOK together, I think that's a very dynamic linebacking room.
All right, and the tight end, a guy that's athletic, almost as athletic as David Njoku, not quite, though.
Yeah, and if you're not Brock Bowers, you're getting forgot about in this draft. There's a couple other tight ends. He's one of them that pops off to me that just a vertical threat. Someone that's 6'4", 245 has that size. As most receiving tight ends that come in out of college, he lacks a little bit in the blocking department. But given what you got with Njoku being a complete tight end and Giovanni Ricci coming in to kind of being that utility guy, more that H-back role, I think that you could get a receiving tight end like Jatavian Sanders and really do some damage in the vertical game, getting up the seams. He's excellent in traffic. And it's what he can do with the ball in his hands after the catch, similar to Njoku, that intrigues you. If you can get a young guy like that under contract and let him grow, because tight end is one of those positions, it's hard to be ready right out of the box. Usually it's a year, 2 years, 3 years into their career before they really take flight. And I think that, if you get ahead of it now, where you already have Njoku under contract, you already got the dirty blocker in Giovanni under contract, you can kind of let him be that move piece and let him get his toes wet. But he's someone who can be very explosive in the vertical game.
All right, we're going to take a look at two more picks. We're going to skip the offensive tackle. Sorry, offensive lineman, just not sexy at this point. All right, pick 156, Renardo Green, a cornerback from Florida State. Browns have been pretty good at drafting cornerbacks under Andrew Berry. And then at pick 230, a name that's been connected to the Browns some, Isaac Gendo, running back from Louisville. Take us through Green and Gendo and what you like about those two.
Well, Green's one of those guys that I caught by accident because I was looking at second-round wide receivers, and I was looking at Jamari Thrash and Ricky Pearsall, and all of a sudden there's this guy from Florida State. And it's like, this kid's tenacious, press man corner right up the Browns' alley. And this is a pick for the future. I'm not picking a guy to play slot this year. I'm picking someone who can be a spot starter if Denzel has to miss some games, which he probably will. I think you got a guy that can step right in. And he's that guy who's going to go day 3. I honestly feel like in a couple of years we could look back and ask why he wasn't a day 1 or a day 2 pick. Love his game, love his tenacity, and he showed his wares at the Shrine Bowl and was the best corner on the field. And he's been rising up the ranks. Tested well at the combine, but it's what he did on his on-field drills that I think are really turning heads. And I think he's a starting level outside corner in the league. Isaac Gendo, that's a guy who's kind of like, he's a home run hitter. 5-year college player, but he split time in Wisconsin behind Jonathan Taylor and Braylon Allen. Didn't really get any playing time there. Transferred to Louisville for 1 year. Still split reps with Jawar Jordan. But when he was on the field, this kid had 22 runs of more than 15 yards or more. I mean, just explosive. And he shows you what he can do. He's really good in inside and outside zone. Good out of the shotgun. He's someone I think can really give you a boost. And then he goes to the combine and runs a 4.3640, showing you that explosion wasn't just a flash in the pan. 1 year at Louisville, this kid really has it. Low tread on the tires, and someone I think the Browns should definitely be interested in.
All right, we're going to take a look at another mock draft. This one from Jared Mueller by Dogs by Nature. Jared, frequent guest on the show. So at pick 54 in the second round, he has Braden Fisk, defensive tackle, guy that really shined at the combine. Third round, he has him going running back Jaylen Wright from Tennessee. And the fifth round, a tight end, Ben Sinnott from Kansas State. If Fisk is there at 54, man, you saw the stuff at the combine. He had the agility of a linebacker or safety in 292 pounds. I know he's undersized. I'd be real interested to see how Jim Schwartz would line him up and use him.
We were talking about him a couple months ago before the combine, and I liked his tape. Just really high motor, good use of hands, really gets after it, tenacious. But then he does what he does at the combine, and you're like, wow. Just elite level athleticism, explosivity kind of shows off there. And I think the one thing that'll hold him back from going in the second round if it was Cleveland would be his age.
Yeah.
He is an older prospect. And until I see them bend that guardrail, it's hard for me to imagine them doing it. But from a skill perspective and athletic perspective, Fisk is definitely worth a shot in the second round for sure.
Yeah, and Andrew Berry has said it's not dogmatic, but he hasn't really gone above that.
It could be a tiebreaker situation.
Right. Jaylen Wright, we're running back from Tennessee. What do you see with him?
Everything we just said about Gendo is true for Wright. Wright is a home run hitter, but Wright, there's a little bit of Chubb there when I watch Wright's tape. And just that sentence alone, I see a little bit of Nick Chubb. For me, that's enough to get excited and a prospect. And if they were to go running back early, I would be super excited with Jaylen Wright. I don't know how much they value this running back class, but out of all the prospects, he has the most dynamic ability as a runner. And also not a lot of tread on the tires. You know, he didn't get too much run in Tennessee to where you're worried about being overworked coming into the league. So if that's the direction they go and they want to pick a running back in the third round, I'd be more than happy with Jaylen Wright.
All right, before I let you go, what do you see with Sinnott? Again, later tight end, fifth round.
Yeah, complete player. This kid can play. He can do inline stuff. He can be the flex move out. He can be the H-back. Kind of showed off a little bit of everything. And he's had a really good draft cycle. He's been solid in every area. He's someone that I think would be an eventual starter and could give you spot duty in the meanwhile. Very impressive at the catch point. Good athleticism. Not a lot of knocks, but this tight end class is fairly deep. I think you're going to like a guy like Sinnott. I don't know if he'll be available in the fifth round, but if he was, that would be a home run pick.
Well, we are finding out that Mike Williams has signed a 1-year, $15 million contract with the New York Jets. So that makes the Jerry Jeudy contract look a little more appealing as well. $15 million for 1 year, Mike Williams, who's coming off that ACL. So trying to get Aaron Rodgers, another target out there with the Jets.
Yeah, he's perpetually coming off injury. Mike Williams has been banged up forever. But he has skill. You see what the upper bound limits are when he's healthy, and you get that fit. I'm just glad we're not attached to that price tag for Mike Williams.
I'm with you. Casey Kinnamon, Dog Pound Daily, Barking Browns podcast as always. Great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Casey.
Hey, anytime.
Casey Kinnamon, make sure you check him out. He is one of the co-hosts of the Barking Browns podcast. He is also a writer for the Dog Pound Daily. Always really good stuff. It's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.